After 13 years as a learning coach helping hundreds of professionals, entrepreneurs, and CEOs learn effectively under immense time pressures, I've developed practical, no-nonsense strategies that actually work. This guide provides actionable advice on how busy professionals can learn efficiently without sacrificing quality. Whether you're struggling to keep up with industry developments or aiming to master new skills alongside your demanding schedule, these evidence-based techniques will transform your approach to learning. 1. Start from zero. Interestingly, I've found that university dropouts are often easier to coach than exemplary students. This is because they have fewer ingrained learning habits to overcome. Many professionals struggle with learning because they continue using the same techniques that worked, or appeared to work, during their university days, not realizing these methods no longer serve them in a professional context. Your learning system likely combines effective habits worth keeping and detrimental habits holding you back, habits you may not even be aware of. The challenging part of becoming an efficient learner isn't acquiring new techniques, it's identifying and unlearning established bad habits. Starting from zero means wiping the slate clean. Don't automatically fall back on university learning methods. Instead, assess your current situation, define your learning goals, and build a fresh learning system based on your present needs and context. 2. Learn in sprints. University learning provided structure through predetermined curricula and clear assessment criteria. Professional learning lacks this framework, making it crucial to create your own structured approach. Set explicit learning goals similar to lecture objectives. What specific knowledge do you need? How thoroughly do you need to understand it? By when must you achieve this expertise? Once your goals are established, learn aggressively. The sprint component. Consume as much relevant information as possible until you approach your saturation point, which may occur after just a few hours. Then immediately apply what you've learned. The sprint cycle consists of 1. Setting a specific learning goal, 2. Consuming information aggressively, 3. Applying the knowledge extensively. Apply your knowledge until it feels internalized and comfortable before beginning your next sprint with a new learning goal. I've sometimes spent 2 weeks reading several books on a subject, followed by 6 months applying what I've learned before I feel ready to consume more information. Remember that the value of professional learning lies in your ability to execute. Knowledge without application has limited worth. 3. Lead, don't follow. When conducting workshops globally, I notice that high-potential new graduates share a distinctive approach. They position themselves as emerging experts rather than just meeting basic requirements. This mindset significantly impacts learning because your brain organizes new information based on the context and purpose behind your learning efforts. If you're learning just to meet current requirements, you'll likely achieve that level but gain little beyond it. Conversely, an expert sees deeper nuance in the same information. By adopting an expert mindset, you process information differently. Your brain consolidates knowledge in ways that more closely resemble expert thinking, carrying you beyond basic competence. When you approach new topics with this deeper perspective, the quality of your contributions and questions will stand out. People notice when someone thinks beyond their current level. 4. Write less. You are not a human photocopier, and words on paper mean nothing by themselves. While students often pride themselves on comprehensive, attractive notes, professionals quickly realize that extensive note-taking consumes valuable time with diminishing returns. Remember, learning happens in your brain, not on paper. Effective learning involves constantly comparing new information with existing knowledge, making analogies, and simplifying concepts, all active mental processes. Notes should function as a cognitive offload mechanism, a visual representation of your thought process. Any adjustment to your note-taking method that better aligns with how your brain organizes information will increase learning effectiveness and naturally reduce the volume of notes required. 5. Don't memorize. Learning through rote memorization is inefficient and unsustainable. While some information inevitably requires memorization, particularly in technical or scientific fields, understand that memorization should be your last resort when other learning methods fail. Memorization occurs when your brain receives information it doesn't connect with, doesn't see relevance in, or doesn't understand why it should retain. Your brain naturally tries to prune this information, and memorization forces retention through repetition, an inherently time-consuming process if applied broadly. When encountering new information, your primary goal should be finding ways to learn it without memorization. Make it simpler, more intuitive, more relevant, or immediately applicable. The biggest obstacle I observe when coaching is that people are so accustomed to memorization that they don't recognize when they're doing it. When you catch yourself thinking, "I'm going to forget this," and start repeating information, you're attempting to memorize. Instead, Pause and consider how to connect this information to existing knowledge or simplify it for easier retention. 6. Prep everything. Think of your brain's learning capacity as a muscle. Carrying one potato is easy, but juggling and holding a sack full of potatoes becomes exhausting. Similarly, our brains experience cognitive fatigue or overload when processing too much information simultaneously. Efficient learning requires balancing cognitive resources. In situations like workshops or seminars where you're receiving dense, unfamiliar information, your brain struggles to process, understand, and organize while simultaneously absorbing new content. Prepping everything means breaking down large learning blocks in advance. Just 5 to 10 minutes familiarizing yourself with main concepts, complicated ideas, and their connections can provide valuable context. Understanding why this information matters and how it relates to your needs creates mental scaffolding that makes learning more efficient. This brief preparation can save 10 times that amount in future time and effort by giving your brain an organizational framework for new information. 7. Don't overeat. Learning involves a constant cycle of consuming and digesting information. While consumption can happen quickly, processing and storing, the digestive phase, is where bottlenecks occur. Many professionals, like myself with stress eating, may not recognize when they're over-consuming information. Use these 2 self-check questions while learning. Does this truly make sense to me? Not just surface understanding, but genuine comprehension. Do I feel like I'm about to forget this? When information doesn't make sense, your brain struggles to organize it meaningfully. The feeling that you'll soon forget something indicates your brain hasn't found an effective way to categorize this information. If you've consumed too much too quickly, your cognitive system becomes overloaded. If either question produces concerning answers, stop consuming new information. Give your brain space to process what it has already absorbed. This is where focused note-taking that reflects your thinking process becomes valuable, helping organize, group, and simplify information. Processing time varies from seconds to days depending on your skill level, practice, information complexity, and existing knowledge. But continuing to overconsume when comprehension fails means you'll only be able to vomit back information rather than use it effectively. 8. Map everything. The human brain processes visual information 20,000 to 40,000 times faster than written information. Developing the habit of visually representing your thinking in notes dramatically enhances learning efficiency. Our brains work through connections, forming knowledge networks where information elements influence each other. When information doesn't fit meaningfully into this network, it eventually fades from memory. Your ability to integrate new information into your mental network determines your attention span and expertise depth. Ultimately, how effectively you can apply that information. As a professional, you're expected to do something with everything you learn. Mapping and nonlinear note-taking, physically representing connections, flows, and influences, helps your brain identify these relationships. If you found mapping ineffective previously, the issue likely lies not with the technique but with your thinking process while mapping. 9. Judge everything. Not all information carries equal value. Some elements are more important than others, and importance often varies by context. The value typically derives from how one piece of information influences or impacts others. Exceptional learners don't just organize information as instructed, they actively evaluate why certain information matters. They critique and judge what they learn. This critical thinking often provides unique perspectives that distinguish you from peers. Compare these 2 approaches. This concept consists of elements A, B, and C. This concept consists of elements A, B, and C, but B is most critical because of how it influences both A and C. The second approach demonstrates deeper understanding and more thorough analysis. Even without creating elaborate maps or networks, simply asking yourself, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is this information, can immediately enhance your attention and comprehension depth. 10. Ask better questions. While no question is truly stupid, some questions are more effective for learning than others. The most valuable questions help you retain information, make sense of it, and use it like an expert, supporting your goal to lead rather than follow. Questions that help you map and judge information are particularly powerful. When comparing 2 concepts to determine their relative importance and relationships, you engage with the material at a deeper level. This type of analysis forces you to think beyond basic understanding of individual concepts to their interconnections and applications. For new topics, this analysis naturally generates hypotheses and questions. I think X is more important in this situation because it affects Y and Z, whereas A seems more important in different circumstances because it connects with B but not C. These hypotheses require clarification, leading to meaningful questions. Depending on your situation, you might note these questions for later investigation, research them online, or ask a supervisor. Not only does this questioning process enhance your learning toward expert-level understanding, but it also demonstrates your intellectual engagement when shared with others. When I work with someone on complex material and they ask no questions, it raises concerns about their engagement level. Conversely, thoughtful questions usually indicate high-quality work ahead. 11. Tactically hit the books. The transition from high school to university requires greater independence in deciding how and when to study. The shift from university to professional life demands that you also determine what to study in the first place. Think of studying as your fourth option when facing a knowledge gap. 1. You already know it or can recall it with minimal effort. 2. You can quickly look it up, Google search, reference notes. 3. You need a deeper search, time-consuming but eventually yields answers. 4. You need both the answer and expertise in thinking about the problem and related concepts. Option 4 requires dedicated studying. Many professionals inefficiently approach this by passively working through general materials like books or courses to fill knowledge gaps. This undirected approach includes irrelevant information, consumes excessive time, feels tedious, and delays practical application. Instead, approach studying as a targeted, deliberate process. Clearly identify what information you need and how you need to think about it to solve your specific knowledge gap. This focused approach makes the knowledge immediately relevant, memorable, and valuable. Even if you later explore peripheral details, you'll have a solid foundation of relevant material to build upon. 12. Delete the latent learning period. University students might study for 6 weeks before an exam that evaluates their understanding. This approach carries risk. Knowledge gaps remain undiscovered until the final assessment. Effective students test themselves regularly to avoid surprises. This principle becomes even more critical for professionals. Spending even 6 days learning something that proves inaccurate or incorrect wastes valuable time and resources. The period between starting to learn something and receiving feedback on its validity is the latent learning period. Professionals should minimize this period as much as possible. For complex topics, test your understanding frequently. Move quickly from learning concepts to proposing applications, then immediately seek feedback on your approach. Early correction of fundamental misconceptions prevents wasted effort building on faulty foundations. Many professionals I coach spend weeks learning something, only to discover months later during application that their approach wasn't helpful. This extended latent learning period represents substantial wasted effort. 13. Slow is fast. A company general manager once told me, good planning costs a lot, but not planning costs much more. This wisdom applies perfectly to learning. When time pressures mount and knowledge gaps widen, the temptation to accelerate consumption becomes overwhelming, leading to information overload and poor retention. Many professionals become trapped in consuming more material more quickly, reading books, attending workshops, listening to podcasts, only to forget most of it. They prioritize content coverage over processing and organization. The confronting reality is that flipping pages faster doesn't improve the knowledge in your brain. Sometimes thinking more requires slowing down content consumption. Though I'm considered an efficient, fast learner, my study sessions don't appear frantic. I spend significant time thinking, pondering, and researching. My focus remains on addressing the true bottleneck, processing and organizing information, not on consumption speed, which can always be adjusted. This approach may initially feel slow if you measure learning by content coverage, but proper thinking requires time and effort. This investment saves substantial time later. Going slow and doing it right makes your overall learning faster and more effective. 14. Bring everything to the table. One of my employees, a former student who excelled academically, initially struggled to perform equally well professionally. We discovered he wasn't consistently applying his critical thinking, connecting, judging, and mapping skills to workplace tasks, only to formal study. Becoming an exceptional professional, a thought leader who learns, adapts, and tackles projects confidently, requires consistently applying higher-order thinking standards. Your brain needs regular practice to establish these patterns as habits, making the process progressively easier and faster. Without consistency, the cognitive tug-of-war between thinking levels makes habit formation more difficult. Hold yourself to high standards in every meeting, conversation, and problem-solving scenario. Become someone whose thought process itself adds value to any discussion. Consistently bringing your best thinking not only builds neural patterns but also establishes you as dependable, capable, and worthy of greater responsibilities and opportunities. Conclusion. Among hundreds of professionals I've worked with globally, very few implement even half of these strategies. Those who do experience tangible improvements in learning ability, growth trajectory, and career development. These techniques aren't merely theoretical, they're practical tools that transform how professionals acquire and apply knowledge. By starting from zero, learning in sprints, adopting an expert mindset, refining your note-taking, avoiding memorization, preparing effectively, managing information consumption, mapping concepts, evaluating importance, asking better questions, studying strategically, seeking early feedback, slowing down to accelerate overall progress, and maintaining consistent thinking standards, you'll develop a professional learning system that delivers lasting results.